I woke up that morning believing I was the luckiest woman alive. The night before had been perfect. 20 years of marriage, and my husband had finally looked at me the way he used to when we first met. He held my hand across the candlelit table, whispered words I had been desperate to hear for years, and promised me eternal love. I went to sleep with tears of joy on my pillow. But less than 12 hours later, I would discover that those tears were nothing compared to the ones I would cry when the truth came crashing down. Because what I found the next day didn't just break my heart. It shattered my entire world. Let me take you back to that night. It was our 20th wedding anniversary. For weeks, I had been anxious. Our marriage had been struggling. The spark had faded somewhere between raising 2 kids, demanding careers, and the exhaustion of daily life. I'm 45 years old, and lately, I had been feeling invisible. Not just to him, but to myself. The mirror showed a woman I barely recognized. Tired eyes, worry lines, a body that carried the weight of 2 decades of sacrifice. I had given everything to this marriage, to this family. And somewhere along the way, I had forgotten who I was before I became his wife. But that night felt different. He surprised me. He came home early with flowers, real roses, not the supermarket kind. He was wearing the cologne I loved, the one he hadn't worn in years. He told me he had reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date. My heart fluttered like I was 25 again. Maybe this was it. Maybe we were finally going to find our way back to each other. I wore my best dress, the red one I had been saving for a special occasion. I did my makeup carefully, spent extra time on my hair. I wanted him to see me. Really see me. The restaurant was beautiful. Soft lighting, quiet music, the kind of atmosphere that makes you believe in romance again. He ordered wine, the expensive kind. We talked, really talked, for the first time in months. He apologized for being distant. He said work had been consuming him, that he had been neglecting us, neglecting me. He reached across the table and took my hand. His touch was warm, familiar. He looked into my eyes and said the words I had been starving to hear. He told me I was beautiful. That I was the love of his life. That he couldn't imagine growing old with anyone else. He said he wanted to renew our commitment, to make the next 20 years even better than the first. I believed every word. Why wouldn't I? This was my husband. The father of my children. The man I had built a life with. When he raised his glass and toasted to eternal love, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Pure, unfiltered hope. We drove home holding hands. He kissed me goodnight like he meant it. I fell asleep smiling, thinking that maybe, just maybe, we had turned a corner. Maybe our love story wasn't over. Maybe it was just beginning a new chapter. I woke up the next morning still wrapped in that warm feeling. The sun was streaming through the curtains. I could hear birds singing outside. It felt like the universe was confirming what I already knew. Everything was going to be okay. I reached over to his side of the bed, but it was empty. I could hear the shower running. He had an early meeting, I remembered. I stretched, feeling more rested than I had in months. I decided to make him breakfast, to show him that I was just as committed to making this work. I went downstairs in my robe, humming softly. I started the coffee, pulled out eggs and bread. That's when I heard his phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. He must have forgotten it when he went upstairs. It buzzed again. And again. I glanced at it, not really thinking. The screen lit up with notifications. Text messages. A lot of them. From a name I didn't recognize. Just a first name. Jessica. My stomach tightened. It was probably nothing. A coworker. A client. But something in my gut told me to look. My hand trembled as I picked up the phone. I knew his passcode. We had always been open about phones, or so I thought. I unlocked it. The messages were right there on the home screen. I didn't even have to open the app. And what I saw made my blood run cold. The first message was from late last night, after we got home. Did you do it? Did you tell her? My breath caught. I scrolled up with shaking fingers. There were dozens of messages. Hundreds. Going back months. My vision blurred as I read. Intimate messages. Explicit messages. Pet names that made me sick. Plans to meet. Hotels. Lies he had told me to cover his tracks. But it was the recent ones that destroyed me completely. I can't wait until you're finally free, Jessica had written. Playing the devoted husband must be exhausting. His response made me drop the phone. It is. But I have to keep her happy for now. The lawyer said I need to look committed before I file. Tonight should help. I took her to that restaurant, said all the right things. She ate it up. God, she's so desperate for attention, it's almost sad. I couldn't breathe. The kitchen spun around me. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare. But when I picked up the phone again with trembling hands, the messages were still there. I kept reading, even though every word was a knife in my chest. He called me old. Pathetic. Said I had let myself go. Said he couldn't stand to touch me anymore but had to pretend for the sake of appearances. He joked about my dress from last night, said I looked like I was trying too hard. They laughed together about my tears of joy. My tears of joy were their private joke. There were photos too. Photos of them together. Her hand on his chest. His lips on her neck. They were in our bed. Our bed. The one we had picked out together 15 years ago. The one where we had made love, where we had comforted each other through hard times, where I had cried myself to sleep more nights than I cared to admit over the past year, not knowing why my husband felt so distant. Now I knew. He had been distant because he was with her. I sank to the floor. The cold tile pressed against my legs. Sobs ripped through my chest. How could I have been so blind? How could I have believed him? Every sweet word from last night played in my head like a cruel joke. Eternal love. What a lie. What a vicious, calculated lie. He didn't love me. He didn't even respect me. I was just an obstacle in his way. Something to manage while he planned his exit strategy. The anniversary dinner wasn't about us. It was about him. About building his case that he tried, that he was the good guy, that I was the problem. I don't know how long I sat there on that kitchen floor. Time lost meaning. The coffee pot beeped, signaling it was done brewing. The sound made me jump. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. Panic flooded through me. He was coming. He would walk down here any minute, smile at me, kiss my forehead, and continue the charade. I couldn't let him see me like this. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed to plan. I forced myself to stand. My legs felt like water. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I put his phone back exactly where it had been. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I heard his footsteps on the stairs. I turned to the stove, pretending to cook, even though I could barely see through my tears. He walked into the kitchen, towel around his waist, hair still wet. He was whistling. Actually whistling. Like he didn't have a care in the world. Like he hadn't just destroyed his wife of 20 years. Morning, beautiful, he said, kissing the top of my head. I flinched but covered it by reaching for a spatula. You're making breakfast. You didn't have to do that. His voice was cheerful, loving even. It made me want to scream. Last night was amazing, he continued, pouring himself coffee. I mean it, honey. I want more nights like that. I want us to really focus on us again. I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, I would either scream or vomit. I just nodded, keeping my back to him. I forgot my phone, he said, and I heard him pick it up from the counter. Damn, early meeting today. I need to get going. He gulped his coffee, went back upstairs to dress. I stood there, frozen, the eggs burning in the pan. Smoke filled the kitchen. I didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. He came back down in his suit, the navy one I had bought him for his birthday. He looked handsome. Put together. Successful. No one would ever guess what kind of man he really was. "Hey, the eggs," he said, turning off the stove. "You okay? You seem distracted." I finally turned to look at him. Really look at him. I searched his face for any sign of guilt, remorse, anything human. There was nothing. Just a mask of concern that he wore so well. "I'm fine," I managed to whisper. "Just tired." He smiled, that smile I had fallen in love with 20 years ago. "Well, rest up. Maybe we can go out again this weekend. Keep the romance alive, right?" He winked at me and walked out the door. I heard his car start, heard him drive away. And then I collapsed. I fell to my knees right there in the kitchen and cried harder than I had ever cried in my life. Not just for the betrayal. Not just for the lies. But for the years I had wasted. For the woman I had become. For the fool I had been. But somewhere in that pain, in that absolute devastation, something else began to grow. Anger. Pure, white-hot anger. How dare he? How dare he make me feel small, worthless, invisible? How dare he sleep beside me, let me cook his meals, raise his children, manage his home, all while planning his escape with another woman? How dare he look me in the eye and promise eternal love when he was counting down the days until he could leave? I thought about Jessica. Young, probably. Childless. Uncomplicated. Everything I wasn't anymore. Everything I couldn't be because I had given my youth, my body, my energy to building this life with him. I picked myself up off that floor. I washed my face. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were swollen. My face was red and blotchy. I looked exactly how I felt. Broken. But as I stared at my reflection, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let him do this to me. I wasn't going to be the pathetic wife who fell apart while he rode off into the sunset with his mistress. I wasn't going to make this easy for him. If he wanted out, fine. But he was going to face what he had done. He was going to see the devastation he caused. And he was going to know that I wasn't the desperate, aging woman he thought I was. I spent that entire day planning. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I let him think everything was normal. I went through his phone records online. I had access to our account. I found the hotel charges. The expensive dinners that weren't with clients. The patterns that had been right in front of me all along. How had I missed this? How had I been so trusting, so naive? I screenshotted everything. Every message. Every photo. Every receipt. I documented it all. I called a lawyer, a good one that a friend had recommended after her own divorce. I made an appointment for the next day. Then I waited. I cooked dinner like always. Set the table like always. When he came home that evening, I greeted him calmly. We ate together. He talked about his day, complained about traffic, asked about mine. I lied smoothly. Told him I had lunch with a friend, did some shopping, nothing special. He didn't suspect a thing. Why would he? In his mind, I was already defeated. Already his to manipulate. After dinner, he settled on the couch to watch TV. I sat beside him. We could have been any normal couple on any normal evening. Except nothing was normal. Nothing would ever be normal again. That night in bed, he reached for me. My skin crawled, but I didn't pull away. I needed more time. I needed to be smart about this. I let him hold me while my mind raced with everything I knew. He fell asleep easily, peacefully, like a man with a clear conscience. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. I thought about confronting him right then. Screaming, throwing his betrayal in his face. But I didn't. Because I knew that when I confronted him, it had to be on my terms. It had to count. The next morning, I met with the lawyer. She was sharp, experienced, and kind. She listened to my story without judgment. She looked through all my evidence and nodded approvingly. "You have a strong case," she said. "He clearly planned this. The timing, the anniversary dinner, it was all strategic. But we can use that. Document everything. Don't let him know you know." "Not yet. We need to prepare first." I followed her advice. For 3 days, I played the perfect wife while secretly preparing for war. I gathered financial documents. I backed up files. I moved money to a separate account, just enough to protect myself. I was meticulous. Focused. The pain was still there, crushing my chest every moment, but I channeled it into action. On the 4th day, I was ready. He came home from work like usual. I was waiting in the living room. Not in the kitchen cooking. Not upstairs oblivious. Right there in the living room with his phone in my hand. He saw me and smiled. "Hey, hon, what are you doing with my phone?" "I've been looking for that." His voice was casual, but I saw the flicker of concern in his eyes. "Sit down," I said. My voice was calm. Eerily calm. He hesitated. "What's going on?" he asked, but he sat. He was still trying to play it cool, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply turned the phone screen toward him. It was open to his messages with Jessica. I watched the color drain from his face. "I know everything," I said. "I've known for days. Every lie. Every hotel. Every cruel word you said about me to her. I know about your plan to wait until the lawyers said it was time. I know you used our anniversary to build your case. I know that when you promised me eternal love, you were laughing at me behind my back." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone. I can explain," he finally stammered. "Please, let me explain. It's not what you think." I laughed. Actually laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. "Really? It's not what I think? So you're not having an affair with Jessica? You didn't call me pathetic and desperate? You didn't plan our romantic anniversary dinner as part of your divorce strategy? Please, tell me what it really is." He tried to take the phone from me, but I pulled it back. "I have copies," I said. "Screenshots of everything. My lawyer has them too. And before you even think about lying your way out of this, know that I also have the hotel receipts, the phone records, and a very clear timeline of your affair." His face went from pale to red. "You went through my phone? You spied on me? You talked to a lawyer behind my back?" The audacity of his outrage would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. "I spied on you?" I asked, my voice rising now. "You've been sleeping with another woman in our bed, and you're upset that I looked at your phone?" He stood up, started pacing. "It's not, we didn't, look, things between us haven't been good for a long time. You know that. We've been distant." I felt alone. There it was. The blame. The justification. "So it's my fault?" I asked. "I worked, raised our kids, took care of this house, tried every day to make you happy, and because we had some difficult times, you decided to cheat. To humiliate me? To plan your exit while pretending to love me?" He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just made me angry. "I never meant to hurt you," he said weakly. "That's the thing about betrayal," I replied. "Intention doesn't matter. Impact does. And you didn't just hurt me. You destroyed me. You made me question everything about myself. You made me feel worthless. Old. Invisible. You took 20 years of my life, my loyalty, my love, and you threw it away for someone younger and more exciting. And then you had the cruelty to look me in the eye and promise me forever. Tears were streaming down my face now, but my voice stayed strong. He tried to come closer, to touch me. I stepped back. Don't you dare, I said. Don't you dare try to comfort me now. That ship has sailed. You made your choice. You chose her. You chose lies. You chose to betray everything we built. He looked broken himself now, but I felt no satisfaction in it. What do you want? He asked quietly. What do I want? I repeated. I want the last 20 years back. I want my youth back. I want my trust back. But I can't have those things. So instead, I'll settle for my freedom. My dignity. And half of everything we built together. His face hardened. There was the real him. The one who had been hiding behind the mask of a devoted husband. Half. You think you deserve half? The transformation was stunning. The sweet man from the anniversary dinner was completely gone. This was the man who had called me pathetic in his messages. According to the law, yes, I said calmly. And according to basic human decency, I deserve a lot more than that for what you've put me through. But I'll settle for what's legally mine. We argued for hours that night. He cycled through every emotion. Denial. Anger. Bargaining. He promised to end things with Jessica. Said it was just a mistake. Begged for another chance. When that didn't work, he got mean. Said things that confirmed every cruel word I had read in those messages. He told me I had become boring. That I had stopped trying. That I should have seen this coming. Each word was designed to wound, and they did. But they also clarified everything. This wasn't the man I married. Or maybe it was, and I had just been too blind to see it. That night, he slept in the guest room. I changed the locks on our bedroom door. It was a small act of defiance, but it felt important. I needed space that was mine. Space he couldn't invade. I lay in bed, exhausted but strangely relieved. The worst had happened. The bomb had exploded. And I was still standing. Shattered, yes. But standing. Over the next few weeks, we lived in the same house but separate lives. He moved his things to the guest room. We barely spoke. The kids knew something was wrong but didn't know the details. They were adults now, living their own lives. I would tell them eventually, but not yet. Not until I was stronger. The divorce proceedings began. It was ugly. He fought for everything. Tried to hide assets. Painted me as unstable. But I had my evidence. I had my truth. And I had a lawyer who believed in me. Jessica disappeared from his phone, or at least from the phone records I could see. I didn't know if the affair continued. I didn't care anymore. She could have him. She would eventually learn what I learned. That beneath the charm was a man who could discard 20 years of commitment without remorse. That would be her lesson to learn, not mine. Months passed. Slowly. Painfully. But they passed. I started therapy. I needed help processing the betrayal, the grief, the loss of the life I thought I had. My therapist helped me see that I hadn't lost myself in the marriage. I had been there all along, just buried under layers of trying to be everything to everyone. She helped me understand that his betrayal said everything about him and nothing about my worth. It took time to believe that. Some days I still don't. But more and more, I'm finding pieces of myself again. I joined a support group for women going through divorce. Hearing their stories helped me feel less alone. Some had been betrayed like me. Others had different reasons for leaving. But we all shared the common experience of rebuilding our lives from scratch at an age when we thought we had it all figured out. We became friends. Real friends. The kind who show up with wine and tissues and rage on your behalf. The kind I hadn't had time for when I was too busy being a wife and mother. I started doing things I had given up years ago. I took a painting class. I joined a book club. I went on a solo trip to the mountains, something I had always wanted to do but never had the courage. Standing on that summit, wind in my face, looking out at the endless view, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. Yes, my heart was broken. Yes, I had been betrayed and discarded. But I was free. Free from the lie I had been living. Free from trying to earn love from someone who was incapable of giving it. Free to discover who I was without him. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Tuesday. I sat in the courtroom and watched the judge dissolve 20 years of marriage with the strike of a gavel. It should have felt more significant. More ceremonial. But it just felt like paperwork. He didn't look at me. I didn't look at him. We signed our names, and it was done. I walked out of that courthouse without looking back. My lawyer patted my shoulder. "You did it," she said. "You survived." I nodded, but survival felt like a low bar. I wanted more than survival. I wanted to thrive. And slowly, I am. It's been almost a year now since that morning I found the messages. A year since my world imploded. I won't lie and say it's been easy. There are still hard days. Days when I wake up and the betrayal feels fresh all over again. Days when I question if I'll ever be able to trust again. Days when I see couples holding hands and feel a pang of loss for what I thought I had. But those days are becoming fewer. And in between, there are good days. Great days, even. I got a promotion at work. Turns out when you're not pouring all your energy into a failing marriage, you have more to give elsewhere. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with. I laughed until my stomach hurt. I cried healing tears instead of heartbroken ones. I woke up one morning and realized I hadn't thought about him first thing. That felt like a victory. Small, but significant. I even went on a date. Just one, with a kind man I met through a friend. It was terrifying and awkward and I spent half the evening wondering if I was ready. But he was respectful and funny and made no promises of eternal love. "We're taking it slow. Maybe it'll lead somewhere. Maybe it won't. But I'm learning that I don't need another person to complete me. I was never incomplete. I was just with someone who made me feel that way. My relationship with my children is stronger now too. They know the truth about the divorce. They were hurt and angry on my behalf. But more than that, they've told me they're proud of me. For standing up for myself. For not accepting less than I deserved. For showing them that it's never too late to choose yourself. Those conversations healed something in me I didn't even know was broken. I look in the mirror now and see someone different than the woman who woke up that terrible morning. Yes, I'm older. Yes, I have scars. But I also have strength I didn't know I possessed. I have boundaries I won't let anyone cross again. I have self-respect that was earned through fire. I have a life that's mine, built on truth instead of lies. That's worth more than any promise of eternal love from someone who didn't know what love really meant. Do I regret the 20 years? Sometimes. I regret trusting so completely. I regret ignoring the small warning signs that were probably there all along. I regret sacrificing so much of myself for someone who didn't appreciate it. But I don't regret my children. I don't regret the good memories, the ones that were real. And I don't regret what I've learned. Pain is a harsh teacher, but the lessons stick. If you're going through something similar, if you've discovered that the person you trusted most has betrayed you, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. You are not too old, too boring, too anything. Their betrayal is about their character, not your worth. You are allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to grieve. But you're also capable of rebuilding. Stronger than before. Wiser than before. Free in ways you couldn't imagine when you were trying to hold together something that was already broken. That morning when I found those messages, I thought my life was over. In a way, it was. But endings make space for beginnings. The life I'm building now is different than the one I planned. It's scarier. Less certain. But it's also more authentic. More mine. And every day, I'm learning that eternal love doesn't come from someone else's promises. It comes from the unshakable commitment I make to myself. To honor my truth. To protect my peace. To never again settle for less than I deserve. He promised eternal love and broke my heart. But in breaking it, he set me free. And that freedom, as painful as it was to gain, is the greatest gift I could have received. Because now I know that the only eternal love I need is the one I give myself. Everything else is just bonus. Everything else is a choice. And I'm finally free to choose wisely. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt betrayed or had to rebuild after devastation, leave a comment below. Your story matters. Your strength matters. And remember to subscribe for more real stories about real people navigating the messiest parts of life. Because you're not alone. None of us are. We're all just doing our best to survive, heal, and maybe, if we're lucky, thrive again.